Manchester United are at a crossroads. Not in the vague, overused sense that football pundits throw around every summer. No, this is a very real, very defined moment in the history of this football club. A new manager has just been appointed. A transfer window is about to open. Players are speaking publicly about their futures. Former players are reflecting on what went wrong. And the club is actively targeting some of the biggest names in European football to reshape its squad from the ground up. Everything is moving at once. And if you are a Manchester United supporter right now, the feeling is one of cautious hope mixed with real anxiety. Because the decisions made in the next few weeks will define the next 3 to 5 years of this club. That is not exaggeration. That is simply the reality of where Manchester United stand today. So let us get into it. Piece by piece, story by story, because today there is a lot to unpack. Before we go any further, let me be clear about what is at stake here. Manchester United are returning to European football next season. That changes everything. The squad demands change. The recruitment ambition changes. The expectation from the fan base changes. And the pressure on every decision, every signing, every public statement becomes magnified. A club of Manchester United's size cannot afford another summer of misfires. The evidence from the past few seasons has made that brutally clear. So every move being discussed right now, every player being linked, every quote coming out of the dressing room carries genuine weight. If you want this level of analysis every single time a major Manchester United story breaks, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists to give you the full picture, not just the headlines. We break it down. We connect the dots. We give you the analytical perspective that the mainstream does not always provide. Subscribe now and let us get into the detail. Deco and the Rashford question. Let us start with Marcus Rashford, because what Barcelona sporting director Deco said publicly this week is significant. Deco described Rashford as a top player. He said it is not easy to come on loan because of the level Rashford operates at. He acknowledged that when Rafinha got injured, Rashford stepped in and took on real responsibility. He said, and I want to be precise here, that Rashford did everything when he got onto the pitch, that his season was very good, and that Barcelona are happy he won La Liga with them and that he deserves it. Now, my analysis of this is straightforward. Deco is a professional. He is not in the habit of giving empty compliments. What he is doing here, whether intentionally or not, is publicly validating Rashford at a time when Rashford's long-term future remains completely unresolved. Rashford spent the season on loan at Barcelona. He won La Liga. He contributed when called upon. And the director of football at one of the biggest clubs in the world is now on record saying the man deserves it and worked hard to be there. That tells you something important. It tells you that Rashford, whatever happens next, has rehabilitated his image in a major way. The question now is what comes next for him. Is he returning to Manchester United? Is Barcelona making a permanent move? That clarity has not yet arrived, and the situation remains open. But what Deco said matters. It matters because it changes the conversation around Rashford from one of doubt and disappointment to one of recognition and respect. Afonso Moreira and the winger question. Manchester United have made an inquiry for Lion winger Afonso Moreira. The fee being discussed is around €25 million. The player has attracted attention with his performances this season, and United are not alone in their interest. Clubs from Germany and Italy are also competing for his signature. Lion's ongoing financial difficulties may force the French club to accept offers at that level. Here is my read on this. €25 million for a winger who has been performing at a high level in League One is a realistic figure in the current market. It is not a gamble at inflated prices. It is a sensible inquiry at a reasonable valuation, particularly when the selling club is under financial pressure and may not have the leverage to demand a premium. United are being smart here by moving early, identifying a player before the market heats up, and placing an inquiry before rival clubs can escalate the bidding. However, the competition from Germany and Italy means this is not a done deal. Not even close. An inquiry is the very first step. It means United like what they see. It does not mean a transfer is agreed. Supporters should treat this as an area of genuine interest, not a confirmed signing. The reality is that United need wide options, and if Moreira fits the profile the new management wants, pursuing him at this price point makes analytical sense. Angel Di Maria and what Van Gaal did wrong. This one is fascinating from a historical and psychological perspective. Angel Di Maria has spoken candidly about his time at Manchester United and his relationship with Louis van Gaal. His words, as reported, were striking. He said he started really well, that everything was perfect. Then suddenly there were lots of meetings about everything he was doing wrong on the pitch. He said Van Gaal never showed him what he was doing well, only the negatives, over and over. He said eventually he got fed up, and he ended with something that should make every Manchester United supporter pause. He said it made him hate being there. My analysis here is not about blame. It is about pattern recognition. Di Maria arrived at Manchester United as a world-class talent. He was the most expensive signing in Premier League history at the time. And within one season, the situation had deteriorated to the point where a top-level player was saying publicly, years later, that he hated being at the club. That is a management and environment failure, not just a personality clash. The lesson here for the current Manchester United setup is clear. How you manage elite players psychologically matters enormously. Positive reinforcement, clarity of role, and making players feel valued are not soft concepts. They are performance tools. The clubs that get this right consistently extract the best from their squads. The clubs that get it wrong lose players mentally long before they lose them contractually. This is worth remembering as United bring in a new manager and begin building a new culture. Bruno Fernandes and the Tottenham near miss. This one deserves a moment of reflection. Bruno Fernandes has revealed that he came very close to signing for Tottenham Hotspur. The story is this. Talks had progressed to a point where an agreement was nearly in place. Then, in the final 2 days, Sporting Lisbon made the decision not to sell. The deal collapsed entirely. Think about what that means for Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes, the man who went on to become arguably their most important player in recent years, the captain, the creative engine, the record holder for assists, almost never arrived at Old Trafford at all. He almost went to Tottenham. My analysis is simple but important. Football history is full of these near misses, and they shape clubs in ways that are impossible to fully quantify. The fact that Sporting held firm and Tottenham missed out created the opening for Manchester United to sign him. And what Scott McTominay, a man who played alongside Fernandes for years, said about him this week reinforces just how significant that signing was. McTominay described Bruno as a top professional, a creative machine, someone with absolutely outrageous numbers. He said Bruno is humble regardless of how the team is performing, and that is what you need from a captain. He said players like that are fundamental to long-term success. That level of respect, coming from a former teammate who has now moved on and has no reason to say anything other than what he genuinely believes, is significant. It confirms what the data supports. Bruno Fernandes is not just a good player. He is the kind of player that defines eras at clubs. Manchester United were fortunate to get him. That fortune must not be taken for granted. Tchouameni and the Casemiro successor mission. Now let us talk about the biggest transfer story in this current cycle of news. Manchester United are reportedly preparing a move worth £69 million for Real Madrid midfielder Aurelien Tchouameni. The club views him as a potential Casemiro-type signing, a dominant defensive midfielder who can anchor the entire structure of the team. However, the situation is described as very difficult. Real Madrid are unwilling to sell and wages represent a major additional obstacle. This tells me several things. First, the ambition is real. £69 million is serious money. You do not put a figure like that against a name unless there is genuine intent behind it. This is not a speculative inquiry. This is a structured approach with a financial framework attached. Second, the naming of Tchouameni as a Casemiro type is itself analytically revealing. It tells you exactly what profile Manchester United are targeting. They are not looking for a box-to-box midfielder who contributes 15 goals a season. They are looking for a player who protects the defense, controls the tempo, and allows the more creative players around him to operate with freedom. That is a very specific need, and it reflects a clear tactical understanding from whoever is driving this recruitment. Third, and this is the part that requires honesty with the fan base, the obstacles are real. Real Madrid not wanting to sell is not a minor complication. It is a fundamental barrier, and wages being described as a major obstacle adds another layer of difficulty. The reality for Manchester United is that even with the best intentions and significant financial firepower, this deal may simply not be possible this summer. But the fact that United are targeting someone at this level in this position tells you the direction of travel. The Casemiro hole has been open for too long. The club knows it, and they are clearly prepared to spend significant money to fix it. Carlos Baleba and the Brighton option. Running alongside the Tchouameni pursuit is a more grounded and potentially more achievable target. Manchester United remain interested in Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba. Fresh talks are expected in the coming weeks. The club believes Baleba himself is keen on the move, and personal terms are not expected to be an issue. Brighton are potentially lowering their asking price, which has made this deal feel more realistic. My analysis here is that this represents smart recruitment strategy. You pursue the elite target, Tchouameni, because if it comes off, it transforms the squad. But you also maintain a serious interest in a more attainable alternative, Baleba, so that you are not left scrambling if the headline target falls through. Running two tracks simultaneously is what serious clubs do. It protects the recruitment process and ensures there is always a route to strengthening the squad, even if the dream signing does not materialize. Baleba's underlying data and performances are described as impressive, and Brighton lowering their price suggests there is real movement here. This one feels closer to happening than the Real Madrid situation. Supporters should watch this space carefully. Manuel Ugarte and an open future. Manuel Ugarte has spoken publicly about his future, and the language he used is careful but telling. He acknowledged that this year was not his best at Manchester United. He said at one point he had a realization and shifted his entire focus to the World Cup. Every training session, every minute he played was done with the World Cup in mind. He then said that Manchester United is one of the best clubs in the world, but immediately followed that with the statement that the World Cup is going to be crucial in determining everything, and that he is open to whatever comes. That is not the language of a player who is certain about his future. That is the language of a player who is keeping his options open. He is not saying he wants to leave. He is not saying he wants to stay. He is saying wait and see. My analytical read is this. A player who genuinely saw his long-term future at Manchester United would not need to say the World Cup will determine everything. That framing suggests performance at the tournament could affect his market value and therefore his options. It is the language of a player who knows a move may be coming and is not ruling anything out. Manchester United's incoming manager and recruitment team will need to make a clear decision on Ugarte. Is he part of the plan going forward or not? Because a player in this mental space, focused entirely on the World Cup and deliberately vague about his future, requires clarity from the club before the window opens in earnest. Ederson and the marquee midfielder plan. There is also a clear signal coming from Old Trafford that the plan to sign a marquee midfielder is not going to be disrupted by any other incoming deal. Even with Ederson potentially arriving, the club has earmarked significant investment specifically to address the Casemiro successor position. These are two separate operations. One does not cancel out the other. This is important because it tells you about the financial commitment being made. Significant investment means this is not a budget signing. It is not a squad filler. It is a targeted, funded pursuit of a player who will fundamentally change how Manchester United's midfield operates. The club's leadership has identified this as a non-negotiable priority. That is the right call based on everything the evidence from this past season suggests. Michael Carrick and the retention decisions. Newly appointed Manchester United manager Michael Carrick has made his first public indication of squad philosophy. He wants to keep both Mason Mount and Noussair Mazraoui at the club this summer. The reason is straightforward. Carrick highly values the versatility both players offer, and with European football returning next season, that kind of squad flexibility becomes even more valuable. This is an interesting opening signal from a new manager. Carrick is not walking in and immediately clearing out players who had difficult seasons under the previous setup. He is looking at value, versatility, and what those players bring to a squad navigating multiple competitions. That is measured and intelligent thinking. It suggests Carrick is building from the existing foundation rather than dismantling and starting from zero. Whether Mount and Mazraoui ultimately stay will depend on many factors, including their own wishes and any incoming offers. But Carrick's position is clear, and it tells you something about his management philosophy from day one. The Benjamin Sesko story. Now let us talk about one of the most compelling individual stories of this entire season. Benjamin Sesko arrived at Manchester United last summer for £66 million. And almost immediately, he was voted the worst signing by any Premier League club in a poll of football agents carried out by The Athletic. Let that land for a moment. Not just criticised by pundits, not just questioned by supporters. Voted the worst signing in the entire Premier League by people whose professional job is to understand player value and potential. And what happened? Sesko ended the season with 12 goals. He shared the title of Manchester United's top scorer with Brian Mbeumo. His goals per minute ratio, a goal every 148 minutes, was described as one of the best in the entire league. And in the Athletic's subsequent ranking of all 189 Premier League summer deals, Sesko climbed all the way to number 29. From worst to 29th out of 189. That is a remarkable turnaround. My analysis of this story goes beyond the numbers. What Sesko's season represents is a failure of early judgment by people who should know better, and a vindication of a player who simply needed time and the right environment to prove his quality. His record at RB Leipzig before the move was strong. That data was available. The decision to label him the worst signing before a ball had been kicked in earnest was a failure of patience, and Sesko made people pay for it. It is also worth noting the context around Manchester United's summer signings as a whole. Senna Lamens was ranked 9th overall, making him one of the best deals in the entire Premier League. Sesko at 29th, Mbeumo at 38th, Cunha at 40th. 4 Manchester United summer signings in the top 40 out of 189 deals. That is not the record of a club making poor decisions in the transfer market. That is the record of a club that backed its recruitment process and saw it pay off. The lesson here is clear. Judge transfers on outcomes, not on early impressions and agent opinions. The evidence matters. The performances matter. And in Sesko's case, both ended up speaking very loudly indeed. Scott McTominay and what his story tells us about Manchester United. The story of Scott McTominay is one that Manchester United supporters will think about for a long time. He came through the youth academy. He made 255 senior appearances for the club. He lifted the League Cup and the FA Cup under Erik ten Hag. And then, during a period when the club needed to balance its books following the signing of Manuel Ugarte for £42 million, McTominay was sold to Napoli for £25,700,000. At the time, former Napoli manager Antonio Conte had just taken charge at the Italian club. The rest, as they say, is history. McTominay won Serie A in his debut season with Napoli. In the 2025-26 campaign, he scored 14 goals and registered 4 assists across 44 appearances in all competitions. 14 goals from a central midfielder. That is an exceptional return by any standard. Former Scotland midfielder Gary McAllister has spoken about McTominay this week with genuine admiration. McAllister said that every time he saw Manchester United play, McTominay stood out. He described McTominay as playing like a bear, running hard for the full 90 minutes when others were walking around. He said he was surprised that Manchester United allowed him to leave. And then McAllister said something remarkable. He said McTominay is getting close to the realms of Maradona in terms of his popularity with the Napoli supporters. You can see why he is so loved, McAllister said, because he sets an amazing example. Now, my analytical take on this is not simply that Manchester United made a mistake selling McTominay. The reality of the situation is that the sale was financially driven and produced pure profit for the club, given his academy status. Those decisions happen at every major club. But what the McTominay story does illustrate is the danger of undervaluing players who bring intangible qualities to a squad. Heart, work rate, relentlessness, a willingness to run when others walk. Those things do not always show up in data models the way goals and assists do, but they show up in results. They show up in dressing rooms, and they show up in the way supporters at another club are now comparing a former Manchester United midfielder to Diego Maradona in terms of the love they feel for him. That should make everyone connected to Manchester United think carefully about how they assess and value players who give everything, even when the headline statistics do not always reflect the full picture. McAllister also made an interesting observation about McTominay's own mindset. He said perhaps McTominay might be surprised at what he has done in Serie A. That is a fascinating line. It suggests that even McTominay himself may not have fully believed he could perform at this level consistently. But he has. And that speaks to what environment, confidence, and a manager who fully trusts you can do for a player's performance. When you step back and look at everything that has emerged today across all of these stories, a very clear picture of Manchester United's current situation takes shape. The club has a new manager in Michael Carrick who is already signalling his philosophy and making retention decisions with a clear head. The recruitment team is active on multiple fronts, pursuing a marquee midfielder at the highest level while also maintaining realistic alternative targets. Players are speaking publicly, and the nature of their language is telling you something about where their heads are. Former players are sharing perspectives that contain real lessons. And this season's evidence, from Sesko's redemption to the rankings of the club's summer signings, shows that the recruitment process produced real results. There is reason for optimism. There is also reason for caution. Because European football is returning, the demands on the squad will increase significantly. The decisions made between now and the start of next season need to be right. And the evidence of what happened with Di Maria, with the early criticism of Sesko, with the McTominay sale, all of it tells you that gut reactions and short-term judgments are not reliable tools for building a football club. What builds a club is patience, precision, cultural clarity, and the courage to back the right players, even when outside voices are telling you that you have got it wrong. Manchester United have the infrastructure, the fan base, and now apparently the financial intention to make this summer count. The question, as it always is in football, is whether the execution matches the intention. That is the analysis. That is the full picture. Every angle, every story, every implication, broken down as clearly and honestly as I can give it to you. If this is the kind of football analysis you want to hear regularly, subscribe to Adam United Analyst right now. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video, because there is a lot more coming, and the summer is only just getting started. This has been Adam United Analyst. I will see you in the next one.